It's quite humbling, actually, to come after a guy that is all about world peace, because I'm actually going to talk to you about crushing strawberries, and it just doesn't have the same sort of... Yeah, I'm not feeling pretty good about myself right now, but... I don't know what... there's many different terms to say what I am, I guess, but... I'm in a room full of entrepreneurs, right? We're all entrepreneurs here? It's a great thing to be, whether you're a social entrepreneur or a business entrepreneur, it's all about making stuff happen and creating things and changing things. And that's why I love being able to say I'm an entrepreneur. I also, and I suspect most people here can do the same, I can absolutely, to the second, remember when I first decided to become an entrepreneur. I was a 16-year-old kid working in a dog biscuit factory in Huddersfield. And as a job goes, it was as bad as it sounds. It paid £2 an hour. And my job that I was assigned to do was to get down on my hands and knees, and I literally had to pick up the dog biscuits that fell off the conveyor belt. I remember sort of on my hands and knees during the summer holiday picking up these dog biscuits thinking, this is a pretty rubbish job. But I'm a bit of a geek, and I wanted to do a really good job at picking up these dog biscuits. So I went up to the foreman at the factory and said, look, excuse me, do you have a broom I could borrow? And he looked me dead in the eyes and said, son, you are the broom. That's the moment I decided to be an entrepreneur. So then I left. I walked out the dog biscuit factory and then went back to my parents' house in the village where I grew up and thought of what could I do to earn a bit of money that summer, and set up a little gardening business called Two Men Went to Mow, and spent the summer outdoors mowing lawns for £2.50 an hour, rather than picking up dog biscuits at £2 an hour. So I got a sense then of, if you don't like something, you can change it. And the absolute quintessential example of if you don't like something, change it is Jeremy Gilley. He sometimes refers to me being his mentor. It's absolute nonsense. He's the most inspirational person I've ever met in my entire life, and he is an inspiration to pretty much increasingly the world. Anyway, we'd much rather talk about crushed strawberries, wouldn't we? Much more fun. I was going to talk very quickly about how we got started, just to give you the 5-minute potted history of how Innocent came to be. But Jeremy thought it would be more interesting, actually, if I could pass on some of the lessons that we've learned, because we're 12 years into the business. We've done some things really badly wrong. We've done some stuff that's gone well. I just want to consolidate it into some of the principles that I think have helped us have influence, that have helped us zig when other people have zagged, have helped us actually essentially compete with the world's biggest food and drinks companies when we were nothing more than 3 guys with no cash, and how we've managed to get some purchase in the markets in which we've performed. But I'll start at the beginning of how we got started. The business is born out of friendship. I'm extremely lucky I get to do it with my 2 closest friends, and we met at college and always talked about how much we loved to set up a business together. We had the conversation year after year after year and never did anything about it. And found ourselves on a snowboarding weekend having the same conversation once again. And we said to each other, look, we've either got to stop saying this or get on with it, otherwise we're going to drive ourselves completely bonkers. So we said that weekend we had to come up with an idea that we would go back to London with and start putting into practice. Otherwise, that was it. We couldn't ever talk about setting a business again. And I think that sort of deadline that we imposed on ourselves gave us a bit of motivation. And so we spent the weekend talking about what the business idea could be. And we started here. This was our going in point. We wanted to do something that made life a little bit better and a little bit easier. And it all sounded quite sort of moral and, something quite sort of noble. And we started there, and I have to say that starting point as how and what our business idea could be led us to develop, which I can confidently say is the worst business idea in the history of bad business ideas. Idea number 1 was the thing that we were going to call the amazing electric bath. And it was all about this bath that would fill itself to a pre-designated level and pre-designated temperature at the touch of a button. And I'm the marketing guy, so I get really excited about, the name, the amazing electric bath. And Adam's the sales guy, and he's really excited because he can sell it to hotel chains across the world. But John, the third of us, who'd done engineering at college, had the real light in his eyes because he realized this sort of validated his geeky degree course, and he could sort of work out technically how this thing was going to work. So Adam, I left him for an afternoon. We went snowboarding. He stayed in, started drawing things out. We reviewed the plans that evening in the bar in the resort. And we realized on first look at them that all of these plans involved electricity and water in close proximity. And I remember Adam pointing out we weren't going to make life easier and better for people, we were just going to make life a lot shorter for people, which is a terrible consumer proposition. Anyway, my boss at the time was this really glamorous woman who I really fancied, called Kathy Reed. She gave me a bit of advice. She said, if you're thinking of setting your own business, make sure you properly understand your target audience. And we realized, actually, the only target audience we could say we understood was ourselves. So we went back to basics. We tried to think of something that we ourselves needed and wanted, something that fitted into our lives, a problem that we needed solving. And that's where smoothies came from, because we're three 26-year-olds living and working in London, well, quite frankly, drinking too much beer and eating too much pizza, and we're not looking after ourselves. However, we know that we're supposed to. We all know the benefits of healthy eating, and it's just quite difficult to do it. There's something about modern life that conspires against people being healthy. So that was where the idea came from. We wanted to solve that little riddle. We wanted to make it easy for people to do themselves some good. And smoothies came out of that, because they're just crushed up fruit, put into a bottle. The idea is you could grab one on your way into work and start a healthy habit. So the idea was simple. We understood it. It absolutely was something that we wanted and we would buy ourselves. And I, to this day, think that's a good sort of criteria by which to sort of filter business decisions. Would you buy it? Do you want it? Does it solve a problem that you've currently got and need fixing? Of course, we didn't actually know how to do it. We hadn't set up a business properly before, outside of mowing people's lawns when I was 16. But again, absolute first principles. We shared a house together in Barons Court in London, so we'd spend the evenings and weekends making up smoothie recipes in the kitchen, trying them out with our friends and mainly families, and did that for about 6 months, and got a real sense of what recipes our parents liked, and which were the good ones, which were the bad ones. But we realized we were 6 months into this, and we still hadn't given up our jobs, and we were still feeling nervous about committing fully to the business. And we realized what was stopping us commit was we didn't have anyone that didn't know us buying the products at the price they needed to buy them at and say that they liked them. And so we really wanted to sort of we wanted to test that. So we got £500 worth of fruit, and we turned it into our favorite smoothie recipe, and this was in the summer of '98. And there was a local music festival, so we had a stall at that music festival and sold our bottles of smoothies from it. And we had a big sign above the stall that said, should we give up our jobs to make these smoothies? But a bin that said yes on it, and a bin that said no on it, and then asked people to buy it and drink them and then vote with the empty bottles. And we made a commitment to each other. If the yes bin was full, by the end of the weekend, we'd go in the next day and resign. So on a Sunday, we looked in the yes bin and it was absolutely full. We looked in the no bin and there's a few bottles there that we managed to trace back to our mums who were trying to persuade us out of giving up our sort of jobs. But we looked at each other and said, look, we made this decision, we were going to do it. And actually, we nearly bottled it on that Sunday evening. We were still feeling nervous, and so we decided to toss a coin. And we all called tails, and we tossed a coin 3 times in a row. It came up tails 3 times in a row. So we said, right, that's it. We'll go in the next day and resign. So cut to that Monday morning, in another slightly weird situation. I'm ringing Adam and John every half an hour and saying, have you resigned yet? And they're like, no. Why haven't you resigned yet? No one wanted to go first because everyone thought the other two were just completely stitching up the first guys. So. Anyway, we eventually did, and that was in August of '98. And then it took absolutely yonks to get to market. We were just hopelessly naive. We really hadn't understood the difference between doing it once for a market stall versus doing it day in, day out to sell through shops. So it was a very bleak sort of 9-10 months of having no money coming in, being told no, and all the rest of it. But because there was 3 of us, and when somebody was having a bad day, the other guy was having a good day, we eventually got through it and launched with what at the beginning was just 3 little bottles of 3 different smoothie recipes. And from that first day, where we sold 24 bottles, we've managed to grow over the last 10 years to, now we're selling over 2 million a week. And it's gone from just being the little bottles in, say, independent coffee shops to big cartons in supermarkets, the stuff that we do for kids, and now we've branched out into food as well. So our original business plan, if you read it, said that we would have a range of 3 bottles, and at some point in the future, we'd introduce a 4th recipe. And so that was the entire scope of our vision back then when we started out, that we'd be a 4-bottle company. We never really understood that we could go and do lots more products, and we only ever saw ourselves as being a London juice company. And then now we're in 13 different countries across Europe. So I guess for me personally, Innocent is at least an example of you can start small and still get relatively big. And so the numbers that we had a business plan that was saying that we were going to get to £6 million of revenue, which none of us believed at the time. We thought it was just a ridiculous, ambition. And none of us believed it was going to work, but we really wanted to give it a go. But actually, the business has grown much stronger and bigger and faster than any of us first thought. And I mean, these numbers tell an interesting story, actually, because you can see sort of the early years, it was sort of, it was good, steady growth. And then from about 2003, 2007, it went through the roof. We doubled in size every year, 4 years running, which meant by 2007, we're in this, we're a £100 million plus company. 2008, this basically everything's going right. And then 2008 happens, and everything goes wrong. It looks pretty bad that we went from 113 to 105, but actually, in September 2007, we predicted we were going to be at 145. We recruited the team for a business that size. We bought all the fruit for a year's contracts for a business that size. And then our market absolutely collapsed. Competitors launched against us. The euro and dollar crashed. Price of fruit went sky high. Everything that could go wrong in that year did go wrong. So my claim to fame is that in 2008, we lost more money in that 1 year than we'd made in the entire company's history. So as a business, we are net negative in the money that we've made. So actually, I say that we're not a business, we're a fruit distribution charity. But, one of the country's leading fruit distribution charities. So 2008, disaster, redundancies, horrible situation. But I guess ultimately all the cliches have proved to be true. If you do that type of thing, which is a tough thing, but if you do it in the right way, then you keep the respect and the loyalty of your team. And secondly, you come through leaner, stronger, more engaged in what's ultimately the most important things. So now we've got our sort of mojo back a bit, and we're growing. But we've definitely had good years, we've definitely had bad years. We've also had our fair share of controversy. We took some investment from Coca-Cola a couple of years ago, and that got some negative stuff in the press, not as much as actually we were thinking it was going to. I remember the quote that stood out the most for me was somebody had written, Innocent finally starts sucking the corporate sausage, which was one way of putting it. I have to say it tastes delicious, but weirdly, the controversy, the thing that we got the most controversy and the most negative press for was in 2007, we started selling our kids' smoothies through McDonald's, which shows us exactly where we should be, give someone the opportunity to have a fruit smoothie rather than a fizzy drink. We just thought that was a no-brainer. But some people thought it was absolutely the wrong thing for us to have done. And the quote that stood out to me as being the most sort of I would like to think exaggerated quote about it. Somebody wrote, "It's like finding out your uncle is a paedophile." I mean, I don't know if it is or not, but I mean, we were. So I guess what I say, we've had some great experiences, we've had some sort of more challenging experiences, but I wouldn't change any of it for 1 second. But that's sort of innocent of where we've come to in terms of what have we learned. We've learned loads of things because we've done some stuff badly wrong, and I think that's just a great way to learn. And we've listened to some really bright, clever people, and that's a great way to learn. And so I've just got 5 things that we have found to be true. It's not to say that they always are going to be, but they are things that we think that when we're having a good day at Innocent, we've remembered these things. And when we've had a bad day at Innocent, it's when we've forgotten these things. Something I guess if I was only going to talk about one thing, I'd talk about this. And you guys know this already, right? But every successful person, organization, business, charity, whatever it is ultimately run by a sense of purpose, a clearly articulated sense of what it's here to do, of why it exists. And I mean beyond the financial. You can't have making money as your purpose. And that's just a generic in business. We've all got to be profitable to stay in business. You've got to have something beyond the financial that leads and directs and motivates. The best businesses in the world always have. 100 years ago, Henry Ford set up a motor car company. He said his purpose was individual freedom of movement, to give people the opportunity to go wherever they want, whenever they wanted. And that was a sense of, and that's why he democratized the motor car. And fast forward 100 years, I think probably currently the world's most amazing business set up in the same year as us, Google. They have always had a very clearly articulated sense of purpose. That they say that they exist to organize the world's information and make it universally available to all. And if you think about just that one sentence, absolutely wraps up everything that $100 billion business does. It explains why they bought YouTube, it explains why they're number one in search, it explains why they do Google Earth. It's about providing the world with a free information resource, and that, to me, is something that I'd want to be involved in. So we have a purpose at Innocent. We're led by our purpose. You know, we want to help people not get like this. We want to make healthy, natural food that helps people live well and die old rather than die young. We want to get that around and to as many people and places as possible. So I love this idea of having a simple, clear purpose that anyone in the organization can articulate, everyone as a consumer understands what you're about, and make sure it informs every single business decision or organizational decision you're ever going to make. The quintessential example of it is this. It's my favorite example of keeping the main thing, and knowing what you're here to do. This is a genuine photograph of a head office of a company in America that makes baskets. And I do think that is a business that knows what it's here to do. You know. You can imagine if you're a hungover employee walking in on Monday morning thinking, now what am I supposed to do today? You go, oh yeah, make baskets. It's just a great example of, you know, live the purpose. I have to say this is a terrible example of, at the same point, of an organization that really is not sort of living what it's all about, but same country. Second thing that you guys know, so this is me teaching grandmother to suck eggs, but any organization is ultimately, it's not about the IP, it's not about the buildings, it's about the living, breathing humanity of it. You know, a business is just a community of human beings, so anything an organization does or doesn't do is a result of having someone that cares or doesn't care, that has the skills or doesn't have the skills, is committed or isn't committed. So actually, business is about understanding the kind of people that you want, finding them, retaining them, rewarding them, developing them, rewarding, and making sure that they sort of, they stick with it. And you know, there's many things that we Innocent try and do this well. It is, we see as our single most important business decision is who we ask to join the business. And once we find people we think really do epitomize the values of the organization and share the sense of purpose of the organization, then we do what we can to keep them. And the sort of hard stuff is, I think, important stuff like making sure that everyone gets a share in the profits of the business and everyone gets some access to equity in the business. And we make sure that the people that contribute the most get the most. So we think it's not even, but it's fair. It's in line with what people contribute, but everyone gets something. So we do big things like that. We do little things which cost next to nothing, but just give a sense of community and a sense of team. And there's little things like when you turn up, you get a cereal bowl and a mug with your name on it. And we get together on a Monday morning for half an hour, the whole business, just to, every team gets a minute just to explain what's new and exciting or important about what's going on in their bit of the business that week. We have this thing which is definitely just stolen from Blue Peter, appeals basically, that fills up and in line with our commercial targets, and then we have nights out and celebrations. We have a thing called Lord and Lady of the Sash, which people vote for, which is essentially just employee of the month, but someone who's gone the extra mile to really deliver the donuts gets sort of acknowledged, and basically at the Monday morning meeting, whoever wins it gets awarded a sash and a tiara if they're the lady, or a sash and a top hat if they're the man. They get dinner out for them and a partner, and they get the permission and the authority to make anyone in the business make a cup of tea for the next month. We have a thing called the Innocent Scholarships, which is £1,000 to do something outside of work that's got nothing to do with work, because we love the idea of people sort of having a passion. I don't care what it is. It could be making buttons for all I care, but have something that you're driven by, that you care about. And so we make those scholarship grants available for people to do the things they've always wanted to do. And people have used it for cycling across Africa, recording that demo album, just stuff that's outside of work, in the sense that I want people with that energy coming back into work. And we have a thing called the baby bonus, which is £2,000 that we pay to a baby if someone has a child while they're innocent. And it's mainly just an excuse to use our terrible sense of humour, because we say the payment terms are cash on delivery only, but it's just a nice little touch to get over the hump of sort of childcare costs and stuff. And so we've always done this sort of things instinctively because we can and we wanted to. We've never thought too hard about it. But of course, there's the harder side of sort of people management, which is 80% of it is the good stuff about finding great people, rewarding them, motivating them, developing them. But there's the 20%, which is about actually sometimes you get people that aren't contributing to the community, that are just along for the ride, or even worse, are sort of sniping from the side. And in that case, you give them the opportunity to sort it out and be transparent about it. But if they're not, you've got to ask them to leave. And we didn't get that at first. We had a 100% retention rate for the first 3 years, and we thought that was a good thing. And in one level it was, but on the other level it wasn't, because in any community there's some people that aren't going to be contributing fully. And we realized after 3 years in we were carrying a few people along that it would have been better for them, better for the business if they'd gone on to other things. And I only sort of got switched onto this idea about you've got to sort of, to protect the business, you've got to make sure that you're not bringing along passengers. When I heard a guy called Dan Walker speak, and you probably won't know him, but he was the head of talent at Apple Computers, and he was there about 10 years ago, and he was the person that recruited the team that built the iPod. So instrumental, again, a great example of you get the people right, then you'll get the business right. And he's a big, macho American guy. And I remember seeing him talk at a conference, and he was sort of sat on a stool with his legs wide open, and he was going, "You've got to get rid of the crap people. You've got to get rid of the crap people." But because we're English and we're all very polite, this really nice, polite woman put her hand up and said, "Yes, but I don't understand, what am I supposed to do if I don't have anyone to replace the so-called crap person?" And he just looked her straight in the eyes and went, "Honey, at the end of the day, I'd always rather have a hole than an asshole." I remember thinking at the time, blimey, I wouldn't say that in front of my mum, but there's a truth there, right? There's a truth. If you want the most high-performing team, you've got to make sure that everyone's contributing. Third thing, no, I'm preaching to the converted here. As Jeremy said, organizations, businesses have such a brilliant opportunity these days to deliver more than just the financial returns. And we should never gloss over that as business people. Our primary contribution should be to make money. A business is the sole economic engine of society. Without business, there's no salaries to tax, there's no corporation to tax, which means there's no money for schools, healthcare, roads, police, whatever. We are the economic engine that drives society, and we should be proud of that, and we should want to do a good job of that. I just think we can also go a little bit further. We can make money and have an extra contribution to society. And I think it's both an opportunity and a responsibility of organizations to do so. I saw this fact recently, which sort of blew my mind. Of the 100 largest economies in the world, 51 are corporations. Proof, indeed, that business is winning. It is the most dominant force in society. Jeremy's saying he's not going to achieve his aims without engaging the corporate community. This isn't just hippie speak. Michael Porter, one of the world's most respected management gurus, is very clear in saying that actually businesses, more than any other type of organization, can have a greater impact on social good. And for every business, there'll be one particular mission that they can align their skills, their management techniques, their resources to helping solve. Great example, Microsoft. These are the original founders of Microsoft. And I have to say, if you look like that can help save the world, then we all can. Do you know what I mean? Kosovan refugee crisis about 10 years ago. The local Microsoft office saw this refugee camp in their in their local area and thought, well, we've got to do something. We've got to help with this situation. There's 200,000 displaced people. So a few of the guys went down just seeing if there's something that they could do to help, thinking that they're going to give out blankets or do something like that. And they spoke to the person that's in charge of the refugee camp, and they realized that there was this huge issue that everyone had been driven out of their homes and their nation states and hadn't brought any identity papers, so they couldn't prove who they were to get back into the country. And in the displacement, they'd also lost contact with families, and they were all split up. And to the guys at Microsoft, they just decoded this as, oh, you've got a database problem. So some of the IT developers that worked in the local office, literally, and by the way, this is verbatim from, I met the woman who was running the refugee camp at a talk about 3 years ago, and she verified it, so this is exactly what happened. They would work the day at Microsoft, and then come down in the evenings, and they set up a little tent in the refugee camp, and set up computers there and started building and coding this database, which they then used to take people's identity, to issue the papers, and to reconnect family members. And that bit of software that was encoded in the tent in the refugee camp in Kosovo is now the standard software that's used globally by NGOs in any refugee situation. So for me, that's just a great quintessential example of, that wasn't about money, that was about business applying its skills and resources to a social problem and having a hugely positive effect. So we try in Innocent, and again, we're 1,000 miles away from being the business that we want to be in this respect. We do have what we call is our Miss World strategy, because it's about leaving things a little bit better than we find them, which makes us sound like some Miss World contestants, but it's about making sure our drink's always natural and healthy. It's about making sure that we pay a premium to source from ethically accredited farms. Our third thing is the packaging, the bottle it comes in. It's about making sure the packaging is sustainable as possible. So we've spent 4 years developing the world's first 100% recycled plastic bottle, which is what you drink out of now. We're the first business to monitor, measure, and publish carbon and then reduce it year on year across our entire supply chain. And we give 10% of our profits to charity. So there's more that we could be doing. But that, for us, at least we've got started. We made some big strategic decisions as a business. We're going to do these things rather than those things and hopefully have a positive rather than negative effect. The 10% of profits to charity, in the main, go into countries, the poorest countries in the world where some of our food comes from, to fund rural development projects. So at any time, we've got between 15 to 18 different charities that we run. And again, we do scholarship foundations at Innocent, so people from Innocent can apply. We will then pay their fees and give them time off to go and work in one of the charities in these different countries. And so I have IT guys going out to work in places in Ethiopia, and it's just great because they can transfer their skills as well as us transferring a bit of cash, and they come back and then they're much more energized and connected with the business. And I could never show you a spreadsheet showing that all these things add up. And I think actually they don't financially, certainly not in the short term, but I do think they help us keep bright, committed, talented people engaged for longer and more loyal to the business. And I think there's tremendous sort of business value in doing that. So the pitch for giving the 10% of profits to charity, I could make as a social hippie guy or as a hardcore capitalist. I think both ends are served by doing it. My penultimate thing that I've found to be true, especially when you're trying to connect with people, especially when you don't have much money, especially when you're trying to influence when you don't have the cash to do so, I always find it's amazing how much people remember the little details. Now this, of course, is if you've got the big things right, but for me, I know that I fly, I normally go to Virgin's website to book a flight before I go to BA's, and I was trying to remember a few years ago, why did I automatically go to Virgin rather than BA? Because if you think about it, the flight from London to New York, they both fly the same planes, they've got the same seat pitch and economy, cost the same amount of money, cost the same in terms of time. But I remember the first time I flew Virgin, they came around and gave me a free ice cream in the middle of the in-flight movie. And it was just that just gave me a reason when all the other big things were equal to choose Virgin rather than BA. And it is important to get the big stuff right. I mean, obviously, if Virgin planes were falling out of the sky, then I really don't give a toss about free chalk ice. But assuming you get to parity, then you can work those little details to really give a reason for someone to buy you your product or your service than your competitors, which, in the end of the day, in business, that's what it comes down to. Now, the interesting thing is, of course, with little details, it's not about doing one thing. It's about doing 1,000 little things. So any example I give you is not a big thing in itself. It's more, if we do 1,000 things like this, then it creates reasons for people to remember us. And it's also harder for the competition to copy us, because rather than copy one big thing, they've got to try and copy 1,000 little things, and that's much more complicated. So an example of one tiny little thing, you're supposed to write use by and then the date. And we thought, well, that's rubbish because you don't use a fruit juice. Hopefully you enjoy fruit juice. So we just wrote enjoy by. And that did get us into a little bit of trouble with training standards, but we managed to sort of talk them around it and explain that it wasn't, that people were going to be fine with it. And they ultimately, they saw it from our side in the end. I have to say, unlike the time when, I don't know if any of you have ever bought an Innocent, and sometimes not always, but sometimes if you read the ingredient panel, there'll be silly little jokes in the ingredient panel, right? And I don't know why we do it, actually really stupid, but... and I remember about 2 years into the business, we did a strawberry banana label that just said in the ingredients panel, 6 strawberries, 2 bananas, half an orange, and 2 plump nuns. Like a really stupid joke, but we just printed it, forgot about it, off it went. And about 3 weeks later, I got a call from Kensington and Chelsea Trading Standards saying, Mr. Reed, we've had a complaint about this reference to plump nuns. And I remember speaking on the phone saying, oh, look, obviously, that's just a stupid sense of humor. We don't mean anything by it. No one's going to get confused. And they said, well, it's illegal. You can't do that. And I remember at the time thinking, oh, this might be quite interesting to see where this ends up. So they actually launch a formal investigation into it, and we have to sort of submit our arguments, and they submit theirs, and then there's a court date where I have to go and appear, and the whole thing's recorded like you see on the bill when you're getting arrested. And anyway, at the end of this hearing, they sort of, they go off and they say they're going to write to us in 3 weeks with their decision. And I have to say, I've had many, many amazing moments over the last 12 years in business, but this is absolutely my number one favorite moment, is opening that letter and then reading it, and it said, "Dear Mr. Reed, you must either take off the reference to plump nuns or start putting them in your fruit juice." Just a great moment. We've got that framed in Fruit Towers. It's my favorite. So the little details, I think, sometimes they get into trouble. Most of the time, they just give you a consumer reason to remember you and buy your thing rather than someone else's thing. Of course, like with everything, there's the yin to the yang, and the little details, if you get them wrong, then they can make you look really stupid as well. Oh, sorry, hang on. I'm just going to, a couple of more things, actually. That these are our sort of vehicles. Again, we're just trying to be a little bit different, I guess. Different in a way that's congruent with the brand, but just give people a reason to take the photograph. So our vans, we cover them in grass and daisies, and you can't see it's a photograph, but we call them a dancing grass van because we fit it with hydraulics, and it literally moves around. And if you put a moving around grass and daisy covered van outside Sainsbury's on a Saturday morning, it tends to get noticed. It's free advertising. People take the picture and then ping it around to their mates. And when we launched yogurt drinks, we turned some of our vans into cows, and you can't really see, but around the back there's a tail and a pair of udders. And the best thing on the dashboard, there's a button you press and it goes moo really loudly. So I found my sales guys taking them out on the weekend to sort of like try and sort of meet lady friends, because it does get you noticed. As well as get you noticed, of course, I think it helps get some really keen fans. And there aren't many that are really, really close to the brand. Hopefully there's the people that sort of like the products and buy them. But I think any great business, right at the top of the pyramid, has just got a few people that are really passionate about it. One of my favorite facts about the company is there are 5 people that have got the dude permanently tattooed on various parts of their body. And we have a corporate target to get to 10 by 2012, so we're halfway there. Some people wrap their babies in oil packaging, which to me looks extremely uncomfortable, but this was quite cool. On our 9th birthday, 36 different consumers made us a homemade birthday cake and brought it into Fruit Towers. And I just don't think that happens at sort of bird's eye. Do you know what I mean? I think it's just great to have that sort of that small group of people that are. But of course, that is tremendously flattering. We've got to make sure that we always say we've got to give back more energy that we're getting in from these guys. They're the ones buying our products. We've got to make it even better for them than they're making it for us. So it's just about giving great service, being open, being natural. I put this in. I think this is a great example of, by the way, if you don't look after the little details, you get little things wrong. It's my earlier point. Do things wrong. Little tiny details can make you look pretty stupid. He's quite an easy target, to be honest. He's lots of little things that. Bit unfair. My final point, is I guess it's almost. I guess it's maybe the counterbalance to the first one about we've got to have a sort of clear sense of purpose. We've really got to, and I think that's got to come from within, and we've got to make sure that the business absolutely delivers that. But you don't want to build yourself into an ivory tower. The greatest businesses absolutely are super responsive to those wonderful people that make the business possible in the first place, which is the consumers. And so you've got to do everything you can to sort of open up and listen up, to be porous to the ideas, to the feedback, to hear what's actually important to them. And again, it doesn't cost anything. It's just a cultural point. We just try with the business, and again, we're sure ain't perfect any of this, but we try and build into the hardware and the business practices that we are just always listening. So on the packaging, it says if you're ever bored, then give the banana phone a ring, or drop us a line, or pop round to Fruit Towers. We probably have about 300 contacts a week on average, about 1 or 2 visits a day, and it's just cool because actually, you know what? There's always consumers walking through the office, and there's not much to see. It's a bit of a weird place, but the tour takes 15 minutes. But I like the fact that it's just this visual reminder of we exist only because people buy our products, and these are the guys, so let's make them feel welcome. We always believe that what we say should be what we do. So when we talk about a banana phone, it is indeed a big plastic yellow banana phone. And we do more things to sort of keep the culture alive of it's about the people that buy our drinks. So this is a picture from what we call our AGM, which stands for Grown Up Meetings. This is a recent one on a Saturday morning where consumers come in for the whole day. We tell them everything about the business we've done over the last year, the stuff that went well, the stuff that went bad, get them to vote on the new products. And this is not cosmetic stuff. It is literally the products that they choose on that day, the ones that we then launch in the second half of the year. They help us decide which charities we should be funding. So a real sort of sense of crowdsourcing the ideas and the feedback. And I have 50 people from Innocent. We have to turn people down at Innocent from volunteering to come and do it because it's known as such a great day because, we're getting to meet the people that make our business possible. So we absolutely love that. Again, all these things, anything that's good about Innocent is because we've stolen it from someone else. This is another business that I thought that is a really cool little thing that they did. It's called Birmingham Midshires. This is from their website, and there's a button on their website that says phone a boss. And you probably can't see because the writing's too small, but when you click that button, all these come up, which are the sort of photographs of the main dudes in the organization, including the managing director. And as well as giving it his direct business home phone number, his business phone number, it gives his home phone number. And I heard him talk at a conference, and somebody asked him about it, and he said, well, it's because, we exist because of our consumers. And if someone's got a complaint they want to make about our current account, and the best time for them to make that complaint is on a Saturday afternoon, then they should be able to ring me at home and speak to me about it. And someone put their hand up and said, well, isn't it really inconvenient? And he said, well, actually, he's only ever had one irate phone call at the weekend, and it caused him no inconvenience whatsoever, because he was on the golf course, so his wife dealt with the phone call, which slightly, I have to say, slightly detracted from the overall principle. But he said, but if I'm doing that, and it's my direct business phone number, then it's setting the right cultural standards for the organization. And I thought there's something really cool in that. It's about we've got to be porous to these guys. Without them, we cease to exist. And my final chart is my favorite example ever of the kind of consumer feedback that a business can get. And I think it's the quintessential example of how consumers talk in regular language. They don't talk in the language of focus groups. If you're there, you're prepared to be open and to listen to what they've got to say, they will ultimately, in no uncertain terms, tell you what your purpose should be, what the thing is that's most important to them, the thing that you should have as your main thing and that you should concentrate on. It's a strange example, actually, because it's a letter written by an 8-year-old girl who was on a Qantas flight to Australia, and she wrote this letter and gave it to the air hostess and asked her to hand it in to the pilot. I'll read it out. It's my favorite example of someone ultimately saying this is really ultimately what I want you to be focusing on. Because, dear Captain, my name is Nicola. I'm 8 years old. This is my first flight, but I'm not scared. I like to watch the clouds go by. My mum says the crew is nice. I think your plane is good. Thanks for a nice flight. Don't fuck up the landing. So, the language of 8-year-olds. Anyway, look, I have to say, awesome opportunity for me to come in and sort of talk to you about Innocent. I'm really grateful to be in the context of it being a Peace One Day event. For the first time this year, we're Innocent in a small way. We're properly getting involved with Peace One Day. So yeah, come September, you'll see not just the logo on the front of some of the bottles, but also we're going to have little badges, and we're just in a tiny way helping what I think is a fantastic big idea. And I was saying to Jeremy that this will be the start of small. And Innocent has shown that you can start small and get bigger. And if you're like Jeremy, you just keep going. When people say no, you just got to keep thinking, yeah, they mean yes, really. So a great opportunity to speak to you guys. I'm really grateful. Thanks very much.